What's up, and welcome back to another episode of InSights, the podcast built to help you with your recruitment, digital marketing. I'm joined today by Steve Gibson. Steve, how are we feeling this week, buddy?
Hey, Brad, how you doing?
I'm good. I haven't talked to you in a while, man. We had Brad Smith on. We had David Cerns on. We've been sort of doing a collective group effort over here with InSights, so it's good to sit down and finally talk to you.
Yeah, it's that balancing, like I have to do the sales thing too at the same time. And so trying to find the balance of being able to make sales, help run things over here at RW, and then I want to have time to do this because this is like the part of the job that you enjoy, right? This is the fun stuff.
It is interesting. I've done a ton of podcast episodes this month. I've done 4 episodes of Take the Stage. I've done 2 or 3 episodes of InSights. But to your exact point, that's taken me not necessarily off of the other responsibilities, but I haven't had as many calls this month because I've done a little bit more of this. And that balances out, right? Like next month, we'll have so many shows in the hopper that I'll have a little bit more time to do the client calls and the client comms.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, because I mean, you talk about like a sales function or sales desk, right? And things that I know you're not in a pure sales role, but the things that you're doing are supporting the entire sales role, all the sales roles, the entire sales team. And so you just have to look at it as more of a broader approach, and you're knocking out a lot of things at once. So think of it like it's like 50 calls at once. I don't know how many listeners we get every
more than 50. More than 50.
I was trying to be modest, Brad. I saw you listed.
I appreciate that.
I saw you listed on the top 10 podcast by some I don't know, publication or whatever. So I mean, I'm in the presence.
Yeah, shout
of
out them. I'm sorry, I don't remember what the company was, but it was a top 100, and we came in at number 4. It felt really good to see that. Steve, I got to tell you, man, because some of the listeners have been along this journey for almost a full year. Ran the marathon last weekend. We knocked it down. We came home with the hardware.
All right, you finished.
We did. I finished in 4:39:14. Okay. Finished the first half of the marathon in under 2 hours, which is a PR for me. I've never finished a half in under 2.
Yeah, that's great.
Was absolutely cruising hip to hip with a friend of mine who ran it with me for like 15, 16 miles. Mile 17, I don't want to say the wheels fell off because I had a good plan, and we're going to talk about this in a second as a segment. Mile 17 in Delaware Park was a lot hillier than I thought. And what ended up happening from like waist down, everything just sort of flexed and tightened at the same time.
Oh,
so it's almost like every single muscle in my leg just all of a sudden just tightened right up. So walked through it for a little bit. I want to talk about this actually specifically as a segment coming up. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but ended up just changing running cadence and what I was doing, and still put up a really respectable number, something that I'm super, super proud of. It was fun, man. It was something that, when you think about like a year-long commitment and a year-long journey, crossing the finish line felt super good. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about what's next already. But
really? Okay.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I do have to give a shout out because I know he still listens to the show. My old co-host, Matt Lozar, he showed up on the course twice. So I was cruising around mile like 15 or 16. I look over, Matt's screaming from the crowd.
Oh, that's funny.
And then later in the race, he showed up again, and I texted him this. I needed him at like mile 21, I think it was. Man, I was things were starting to hurt. And it was cool to see a friendly face.
Was he screaming encouraging things or like derogatory things or mixture?
Very encouraging. Very encouraging.
Okay. See, I probably, if I lived in Buffalo, right, I would have been there, but I would have gone through a completely different approach. I appreciate that. I would have gone like drill sergeant approach and just completely demolished you. Yeah. Right. Yeah, what's wrong with you?
It was something, dude. I'll tell you, I ended up running, I think it was 160 runs, 700 miles in prep, absolutely just like locked in and trusted the process and fell in love with the process, really. And to marathon weekend, it was awesome, right? My son ran the kid race the day before. To see him cross the finish line and be super excited about it was awesome. Right after I crossed the finish line, I actually grabbed Bryce. So like my official photo from the marathon, it's me and him, and he's holding the medal. I'm not. And it's like, it's just such a cool moment. Right. And I think what's cool about the marathon that I've had time to reflect on it, even when you're running, you're reflecting a lot. Everyone's a winner. It's such a cool event, right? Like, yes, there's one person who finishes the fastest, but you have no idea what battle anybody is going through, whether it's to set a PR, to run their first one. Maybe they've been sick and like, this is a absolute bucket list thing that they want to do. And just to be there and just watch other people finish almost felt better than myself finishing. It was just a super, super cool moment to be a part of. Super, super grateful that my wife actually challenged me to do it last year. And nice to see it finally come full circle and actually culminate with this outcome.
I think that's why people get hooked. It's more than just the run. I think it's the community. From everyone I've spoken to that works that lives in that kind of world, a guy that I do swimming with, he's a triathlete, and I talk to him all the time. And it's they go to those races. One that obviously they want to prove themselves and accomplish what they want to accomplish. But I think the fact that community is there, it draws them in deeper and ingrains them in what they're doing, and that level of family that comes from that. It's just something that that people really, really adhere to. So
yeah, I'll tell you, man, it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was out walking with my son, and he's 3, right? So Bryce is like a little over 3 now. He just randomly took off running. And I finally caught up to him, and I was like, dude, you can't just be running on the street. Like, it's not safe. We got to walk. I'm trying to coach him through it and everything. And he's like, Dad, I just want to exercise like you. And it like blew my mind of how much these little guys, and my daughter too, they're just sponges, man. And I had this thought too, while I was trying to, decompress the run and trying to reflect on it all. Like, maybe this wasn't even really about me in the long run, right? Like, I think it is setting good habits. It's letting my kids know, like, you can do hard things, right? Like the marathon is impossible. And that's why completing it is super awesome, because it shows you that anything is possible. Right? Like 26.2 miles is a long time, but there's a lot of people that do it. But at the same time, I think the stat is like 1% of the world has ran a marathon. I think it's 0.01 run it every year. Like it takes work, but if you want something, I hope the lesson that, Bryce and Blair, they could look back on maybe in, years, who knows if they even want to, is like, listen, you want something, go out and get it, right? Find the right coaches, find the system, find the training, fall in love with the process, put in the work and go get it done, because no one's going to give it to you.
Yeah. What you need to do now is you need to exploit it. So you need to get that picture. I'm thinking of like a LinkedIn influencer. You need to get the picture of you holding Bryce and you cross the finish line, and make a post about how, I thought a marathon would be tough to run it by myself, but I decided to carry my son the entire way. And then talk about that. Make people think you carried him the entire time, the whole 26.2 miles. Yeah. That's what
it was something, man. Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about my friends over at Broad and Madison. If you're running a staffing firm and your tech stack feels more like a roadblock than a growth engine, Broad and Madison is your fix. With over 60 years of recruitment technology expertise, they streamline your systems, automate the boring stuff, and make your tech finally work for your team, not against it. They're not just another managed services provider, they're technologists first. With deep bullhorn know-how and real-world implementation experience, Broad and Madison doesn't just keep your systems running, make them smarter, faster, and more profitable. To learn more about my friends over at Broad and Madison and how they can help your staffing firm maximize its technology, visit broadandmadison.com. Again, that's broadandmadison.com. All right, let's get back to the show. So let's kind of get into segment 1 here with one of my biggest takeaways from the run. And I do think I want to put together either an episode maybe of Take the Stage, where I kind of just sit down and talk about things I've learned over the last year in doing this, because I think there's a ton of transferable sort of takeaways. But this one thing that's sort of sitting with me right now as we talk about this episode is the thought that the goal always remains the same, even if the tactics we use to get there change. So mile 17, I'm feeling super good, right? I mean, I'm running at a pace that I hadn't run at in prep. My legs were rested. I was well fueled, hydrated. Everything was feeling really, really good. Mile 17, I get to Delaware Park. We're running uphill. And all of a sudden, I mean, everything locks up on me. So much so that like I had never felt that before, right? And in prep, I've been sore. I've run on sore legs. I've run on stiff legs. I've run when I was tired, whatever it might be. I've never run in a sense where my legs just weren't working at the time. And so what I did is I remembered back to a podcast I was listening to with Ned Brockman, who wild man. He ran 1,000 miles in Australia in like 12 days or 14 days. It was called Ned's Incredible Journey. Absolute beast of a human. But what he had done when things got tough is he started walking and then running. So he changed his cadence, and instead of just running, realized, listen, I'm not going to get there in the time I want to get there anymore. So let's change the script.
Okay.
So I did the same thing, right? So miles like 17 to 20, I walked the quarter mile, I ran the rest, hydrated, walked the quarter, ran the rest, walked the quarter, ran the rest until everything loosened up. And I think the takeaway that I want to share, and specifically for what I'm seeing right now as it relates to staffing and recruiting and specifically marketing, is the goal remains the same. We're going to get to the finish line, right? We're going to get applications. We're going to get job orders. We're going to make placements. How you do that, though, we need to have the courage to say, listen, this isn't working. I came in with a plan. The plan was to finish around 4:15. I was on track to do around 4. Things happen. It is what it is. The plan has to change, but the goal still remains the same. And I think what I'm seeing a lot of lately, Steve, is we're either deploying tactics just for the sake of doing it. I mean, AI is such a buzzword right now, and I think more AI tools are popping up left and right where it's sort of like this slot machine casino vibe where it's like, oh, what's over here? Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. And we're eliminating the fact of, well, what is the actual goal that we're chasing? And are these tactics that we're now seeking helping us towards that goal? Because the day-to-day might change, but the goal has to remain the same. And we need to have that North Star. We need to have that vision.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else when we set goals for, just what. So if I set a goal from a sales perspective, right? So, and this is always where it's tough as well. It's not quite apples to apples in some way. So let me try to flesh this out why I talk about it. But from the perspective of, if I have a certain number in mind that I want to reach from a sales goal, I mean, my goal is to get sales and drive as much revenue as possible. And there's going to be times where in a market you fall short of that goal at the end of the year because it's a goal. It's something that you're trying to obtain to, and there's this level of complete mindset of failure that you didn't obtain that specific goal. Right? Sales guys can let those goals. Salespeople can let that goal crush them and completely be something that deflates them, and it can become very, very, very. I don't know what the word
I think deflating is the right word.
Yeah, deflating is the right word. Yeah. So, but from the perspective of, I'm still doing what my function is of producing sales, right? I didn't produce as many as I maybe wanted to, or maybe in the time frame that I wanted to. Maybe you put it over the course of 2 or 3 years, I'm still where I need to be. And I'm not saying that I haven't met my goals. I've always met my goals, Brett. So I want to put that out there.
Of course you have.
I'm just saying that in general, somebody may not be meeting their goals. So that mindset of being able to know that it's not just necessarily the goal of the time, like the fact that you could let that say, man, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to do anymore. What's the point? I'm just going to quit at 17, mile 17. Since I'm not going to reach my goal, why bother? But the fact that the greater goal was finishing the race. And from a sales role or revenue role, the greater goal is, and maybe sometimes in business, it's just staying in business.
Yeah.
Like as a staffing firm, like and recruiting firm, that what we're experiencing right now, hey, you may not meet your goal that you set for 25% growth or 10% growth or whatever it may be. But if you can say, let me just stay in business to be able to continue on the race, to fight another day.
Yes, sir.
That's maybe the mindset that we all need.
Yes, sir. I think that's spot on, right? And I think we need to have the courage maybe mid-race to change goal, right? So I know I started this segment by saying we need to stay fixated on what the goal is, but I think it also takes a strong leader to say, okay, we're not going to get 100 applications this week. We need to be okay with 50, or we're not going to get 20 job orders this quarter. We need to be okay with 15. But I think more important than that, Steve, is are we putting in the inputs that could lead to the desired output, right? And I think a lot of times what I'm seeing and hearing throughout the industry is we want the same results we had in 2019 pre-COVID, but we're doing less work and we're doing less sales activities. We're relying too much on automation, too much on AI, too much on LinkedIn, and we're getting away from what makes sales great. We're getting away from what makes recruiting great. I've heard it takes 3 times the effort for half the results in 2025 from a sales standpoint. We know it's an incredibly tough sales landscape. So again, to paint the race analogy, are the inputs that you're putting in leading to the desired output that you want? In my case, I did everything I could. I had nothing left in the tank, right? And I'm proud of the 439 that I put up. Yes, I think if I had another year in me to prep, if I did this again next May, could I figure something else out where mile 17 gets pushed, maybe where that wall is now at mile 23? Probably, right? Maybe do more hills. train a little differently, hydrate a little differently. I will say on the show, a stranger gave me salt tabs. I went past the hydration station and someone's like, "Hey, do you want some salt? You look like you're struggling." And I said no. And she's like, "Are you sure they're going to help?" So I took 2 random pills from a stranger, and Steve, my cramping went away.
I'm sure it did. You probably never finished. You probably ended up sitting on the floor.
It was something, man. It was something. I was like, I'm all set. Thank you. And then it was at like not a sanctioned hydration station, but it was like somebody who was on the course. They had waters. They had Gatorades. They had everything. And it was like a nice tent.
Some random guy with a coat, long trench coat, holding them out. Yeah.
In the city of Buffalo, the city of good neighbors, right? That's what I've always been taught. But I think the point remains, right? We need to know what the goal is. We need to know what it is that we're actively working towards. And we need to have the courage to say, listen, are the inputs leading to the desired output? If that benchmark is no, okay, how do we change our inputs? But then also have the courage to say, okay, if things are going south, how do we change? What are we going to do differently? Are we going to make more calls? Are we going to make different calls? Are we going to have different outbound? Are we going to have different inbound marketing? How are we going to get leads to us? What does that system look like? Because the tactics that worked 1 year, 6 years ago are not working in 2025. And we need to have the courage to sit down, look at ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, if the goal is X, what are we going to do to get there?
Hey, it's Brad taking a short break to tell you about an offer exclusive to listeners of Take the Stage. 30 minutes of strategic marketing consultation with me, completely free. Hey, whether you're looking to drive more sales or more job applications, I want to help. Visit bit.ly/stage offer. Pick a time that works best for you. That's it. Again, whether you want to drive more applications or more job orders, I want to help. That's bit.ly/stage offer. All right, let's get back to the show.
The hard thing with all of that is there's so many little things that are taking place every single day, and so many little things that probably a recruiter has established in their process. And say you're having one down year, or because the economy is different, and you start changing your entire process. And as you do that, all of a sudden, everything that you've known has worked for 20 years, and you start changing all those things up for maybe a just an anomaly of a year. Is that something that's potentially detrimental to future years? And so I think the hard thing in the balance of that, of everything, just is to know, to what degree what levers do you pull? What processes do you change? And how do you do that, but still stay true to what you've known has worked for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and not throw everything out? What is the balance of that?
I think you have to find that yourself, right? You know what works and you know what's not. You know if you are getting X number of leads from a certain tactic and they're not coming in anymore, well, now it's time to change that idea, change that tactic, change how you're doing things. Look at just the social media landscape right now and look what works on social and what doesn't. If you're still playing out of a social playbook from 2021 or worse, 2018, it's not working anymore, right? We know social algorithms favorite different things in this day. You need to make those changes. So I think it's having the courage to sit down and say, okay, here's what my sales process looks like, right? Let's break this down, Steve. Here's what my sales system looks like. I want to work with Steve's Widget Company. I think they're a target prospect of ours. Like they're a target client of ours. Here's how I'm going to get in front of Steve from Steve's Widget Company. I'm going to call, I'm going to email, I'm going to drop by, I'm going to send email, whatever it might be. I know everyone loves packing up donuts. We're going to send donuts. We're going to send integrated direct marketing. We're going to use PPC, SEO. We're going to do everything that we can to get awareness from Steve's Widget Company to ultimately have that conversation. And then it's sitting down with that list of saying, okay, here's all the things that we could do to get in front of Steve. Which ones aren't working anymore? Which ones are working? What should we do more of? What should we do less of? And not only is it sitting down and having that conversation with yourself, but I think it's also finding the right coach who is seeing this working in other areas, who can say, listen, you need to be doing ABC. It's finding the right person that can guide you down the path. Somebody like, recruiters' websites like Haley Marketing, and say, listen, this is what we're seeing is working really well right now. We know you're doing ABC. If you sprinkle in D, E, and F, we suspect you'll see even more success.
Yeah. I agree 100%. it's just so hard to know what to try and not to try. Like I'm going to try to speak from the mindset of a staffing firm, right? Sure. Listen to this. They're going to be like, yeah, Brad, we've tried all that stuff, but you know what? Money's so tight. How am I supposed to invest in any more resources? And how am I supposed to do any more? So it just, how do you go about changing the right things with balancing out what you have to invest and your budget for all of those things? To me, I get why it's daunting for a small business to be able to figure that out. Because it's not just say, just
but
do
isn't
it.
that the point though? If it was easy, wouldn't everyone be $100 million company?
They would be. Yeah, no, 100%. And that goes back to the whole idea of you have to endure through that, right? 1% or whatever it is runs marathons, whatever that small percentage of people was. So yeah, I mean, there's a level of that, you got to find a way to get through and to be successful and be in that top, 5%, whatever your goal is. It's just hard to know. I mean, I sympathize with that a little bit. I mean, we deal with it a lot ourselves in little things where, where we have to try to find new ways to reach new prospective firms. There's this mindset that can go into just speaking from a recruiter's website perspective, that we can think that everyone knows Steve Gibson. My posts get 20,000 impressions, and I'm at conferences and I send out emails. We send out weekly emails, and I make a lot of calls. When I make my calls, how many people? I'm actually going back, because you talked about going back to some fundamentals, right? And so I'm going back to cold calling. It's been a while since I've had to really cold call, but I'm like, I did mix this in a little bit because it's been something I just haven't had a lot of time to do. I've been very, very blessed to be able to have 7-figure years back to back to back, and I want to continue doing that. And so even though this year is a down year, I want to try to find a way to do that. And so, so I've started implementing some cold calling again. And, how many people that I call have heard of me when I call them?
5%.
0. Every cold call I make, none of those people are saying, "Oh, Steve from recruiters' websites? Yeah, I've heard of you. You're really, really, I love what you guys are doing." No one's ever heard of me. 0. I'm introducing myself to them the first time, and I'm active. We're active.
There's a lot there. And if I can, I'd like to unpack that for a second.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where I'll be on a phone call with a staffing CEO or a staffing leader, and they want to potentially send less email. They're worried about PPC because they'll serve their ads too many times to a prospect, or their ads will get out too many times. They're worried about inundating people with email because they send a monthly newsletter. I mean, Steve, you think about all the activities that you're making. You're super active on LinkedIn. You're super active in conferences. You're super active. You and the team, you meaning the team that's also around you, who is, sending emails on your behalf and things like that. Super active. And now every cold call you're making, you're saying no one has heard about you. Friends listening, I think there's a lot there in the sense of your bubble is a lot smaller than you think it is. Right. And the thought of, well, everyone in Buffalo, New York knows about our staffing services probably isn't true at all. So we need to have that active outreach. We need to have that consistent outreach. We need to have that campaign. We need to have that systematic effort to, even if they have heard of you 5 years ago, get in front of them again. It needs to happen because, I mean, it's kind of a scary thought, but at the end of the day, people only care about themselves, right? And maybe out of the 100 people you've called, maybe half have heard of you. It's just in one ear out the other because they're moving and they're on with the next thing.
Well, what have you done for me lately? Mindset is what most people have, right? And the people that I think tell me, because I hear this all the time too, Steve, everyone in my industry knows me. I think the people that tell me that are the people that are calling on the same firms or the same organizations all the time. So like if I stayed in my sphere of, we've worked with a little over 1,000 clients. If I would call all 1,000 of those clients, they're going to know who I am. They're going to know what we've done for them, and maybe even expand a little bit beyond that. Some people I have in my CRM that have been calling since 2015. They're going to have had voicemails from me. They're going to know a little bit who I am. But if I expand that circle and I push that through people that I've never spoken to, which, from the world of staffing firms, it's a great big world. I mean, there's a lot of recruiting and staffing firms in the U.S. And so there's a lot of opportunity for me to expand those people that I've never reached. And the same thing for our clients. If we're only playing it in that same sandbox we've ever played in, and we're not expanding that out and reaching new people, then sure, people have heard of you. But I would guess that majority of the people in your industry don't know who you are. And I would love a firm to tell me otherwise. Start keeping track. Make some calls and ask them if they've ever heard of you before. And see. And because then if they haven't, that means there's still a lot of work to do through some of these other methods to be able to and maybe it's just doing the same things you've always done, but just expanding how you do it, expanding the reach that you're doing it to. It's maybe that's the whole, I guess the whole point of some of that things that I was coming from is that maybe it's something that it's not about the process that needs to change. It's just about how you're delivering that process or who you're delivering that process to. There could be elements of that you don't have to throw everything out. Just expand the reach of it and reach more people. Don't have such a. We need to get rid of this idea of that I am that I'm important to everyone because I'm important to me. You haven't made yourself important to everyone yet.
Do you want to land more clients and close more deals in 2025? Haley Marketing is offering big savings to help staffing firms like yours grow. Get $1,000 off targeted marketing campaigns, free tools to track your hottest leads, and no setup fees on services that help your company get found online. Plus, we'll even help you stay in touch with prospects for free. But you need to act fast. These deals end June 30th. You visit bit.ly/Bialy offer to find out more information. Again, that's bit.ly/Bialy offer for more information. All right, let's get back to the show. Real quick before I touch on that, if you haven't heard it yet, I had Dan Fisher from Menemsha Group on Take the Stage a couple weeks ago. We talked about cold calling tips for staffing sales and how you can get better at outreach by disarming your prospect. I would encourage you, if you haven't checked out that episode, to either go to YouTube or go back a couple episodes and look for Dan Fisher's episode on cold calling tips for staffing sales and how you can specifically get better at outreach by disarming your prospect. Steve, I think there's a lot here that we can continue to unpack, and maybe we bring a couple more takeaways from the marathon to the show in a future episode. But, again, to kind of bring it full circle and think about, again, the goal has to remain, right? We as leaders need to understand the target. Now, we can have SMART goals. We talk about those at Haley Marketing religiously. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, right? In the sense of a marathon, I wanted to come in at 4:30. I had a very specific goal. Things happen. When things happen, we need to sort of understand, okay, well, what is our secondary goal? What's our safe goal? What is it still that we're actively reaching towards? And how can we change the tactics that we're deploying to ultimately get there? When we think about the sales effort, I think you had a great point in the fact of you're going back to cold calls, right? You haven't had to cold call in a while because either A, you haven't had the time or it just hasn't been a part of your sales system. It's something new that you're testing. I'd hate to say new, but new that you're testing, you're going back to test and measure the effectiveness of, which brings us to another point. If we are trying new marketing or sales activities, document everything. We need to know what's working, what's not, where are our investments going? Are we seeing return on that investment? How much? Is it enough to make it quantifiable and to scale up, right? In the world of PPC, if we're spending X, should we be spending X plus Y, right? If we're seeing good success, don't necessarily move the budget. Let's add to the budget. So we need to think about all of that. But again, man, if I can sort of bring this one home, I was feeling very reflective as we, took this down, and I wanted to bring a couple takeaways from the run to the show. And I appreciate you sitting down and being my therapist for 30 minutes and let me talk through some of that.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. And one thing I want to add to the comment, what you said about documenting what works or document what doesn't work as you're going through those processes. Give it time. Yes. Don't make a snap judgment on whether or not it works for just a couple of weeks. So using your run as an example, you were probably terrible at running.
Steve, the first run I did, I ran 2 miles and I walked half of it. I have the Strava data, right? The first run I did was 2 miles and I walked most of it. I came in and 3 days ago, ran a real good marathon race that I'm really excited about and really proud of.
Right. So if you would have stopped based off of what you saw in the first couple of weeks of running, you would have never made it to your goal at the end of the day. And so from a marketing perspective, from tactics, from processes, from sales procedures, whatever it is that you're doing, give it time to know whether it works or whether it doesn't. So you're not just making snap decisions on and cutting yourself short of the success that you could see from something that you've implemented.
Couldn't agree more. I think there's more success in consistency than just a sprint of effort any day of the week, right? You can make 100 cold calls today, Steve. You're just going to burn yourself out. You probably wouldn't work tomorrow because your voice would be shot. You wouldn't be able to make any more calls tomorrow. You probably, if no one picked up, would be so disheartened that you wouldn't want to try cold calling anymore. But instead, if you did 10 a day over 10 days, you'd probably feel a heck of a lot better about that. There's absolutely success in the consistency instead of doing just a quick burst of effort in anything that we do.
Yeah, make sure it's sustainable. You know, if you want to, one of the things you asked me before the show was, and just we'll say this and then we'll let you get out. But is what are some of the best recruiting firms doing? They are measuring their success, or lack thereof. So they're data driven and they're consistent.
I agree. Steve, this is going to come out before I see you at Naps, so I will see you very soon, buddy. We get to hit Vegas, you and I. I'm there like 24 hours, buddy. I am.
Are you really?
Out.
Yeah.
I get in Monday of the conference at 8 a.m. right before the conference starts, and I'm out right after my talk on Tuesday. Turns out it's not super easy to get to Vegas from Buffalo.
It's not super to get to Buffalo or from Buffalo anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it is direct. I will say that. So that's fun. But because I wanted to go direct, it's just a little bit of a challenge. So yeah, man, I'll see you there. Make sure you get the booth set up for us. I'm coming late, so you can do all the heavy lifting. Make sure you lift with your back, not your legs. I hear that's the way to do it.
100%. Yeah.
A nice twisting motion. And I'll see you in Vegas, bud.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
That's our show. And thank you for listening to another episode of InSights. If you found this episode valuable, we would love to know. You can message Steve or Brad on LinkedIn to share your thoughts. If you have a question for us, you could tweet us at Haley Marketing or email info@haleymarketing.com. And of course, if you need a hand with your recruitment or digital marketing efforts, we'd love to help. Message info@haleymarketing.com and be sure you tell them that InSights sent you. For Steve Gibson, I'm Brad Bialy. We'll see you next time.